Okay, in this little video, I'm going to show you how to get SPSS working with your data. Um, I would say if you've already managed to do this on your own, then this video probably won't add very much. But just if you're completely lost about where to start and what to do, then continue watching. So on your screen, you will see I've got a blank data sheet from SPSS. So I go to File, I go to Open and Data. And it's a bit slow just because we're recording at the same time, but so here I'm trying to now look for where I've saved the data to. So I will go to, for me I have to go through multiple areas in order to find the data. So okay, so we've got it here in our teaching folder. We can click open and just give it a little bit of time to work. Okay, so this is now on your screen. You'll be able to see the window that I can see in SPSS. So it's opened it up in this case, it's opened it up in the variable view. It might open it up in the data view. It just depends on what way you've used it previously. So don't worry about that. One thing you may also notice is that you have also what's called an output screen that has appeared as well. So I'll just share what that looks like. So this is just like a kind of like a blank page. Basically, it's like a notebook that you have. And SPSS basically creates this little notebook to record everything that you do in SPSS. This is where you also get, if you run any analysis, this is where you'll get your results will appear in this little kind of notepad, this little window that's separate from the data itself. So right now we don't really need it because we're just going to be looking around, but once we start running some of the exercises, this is the window that you'll open. And again, you can save this, you can print it out and do different things with it if you need to. But we'll close that down and we will open our data set again. Okay, so we've got our data set here. This is the exact same data set that you will hopefully have open. We've got all our different variables here in the columns, and we've got all the different individuals. Now you could scroll down to look at all the thousands of cases that we've got. In this case, I think we have about 4,500 cases in our study. The first kind of key thing you want to look at is obviously move to the variable view. This window is obviously very useful when we're looking at our data. We want to kind of understand what some of the values are in our data as we sort of scroll down. If we're looking, we want to identify if there's any missing data, but it's very hard to really get any idea of what the data is about just by looking at this window. But it's obviously useful when you've got your own data to look through it and see if there's anything that doesn't look quite right to what you might expect. But if we click the little tab at the bottom there to open up the variable view, this is the window we now get. So all our columns have essentially become rows. So we're going to treat every individual in each of those previous columns basically the same. Anything we do in this window, it will apply to any of those. And all I wanted you to do was just basically look through this, try and play around with things. So you can click here on some of the columns to drag them out to make them a bit wider, so you can see a bit more detail there in the label. Again, this is the description of what is in the variable. You can click on any kind of cell here. You can click and it will open up these kind of three buttons, and when you click it, it will open up another little menu for you. So here in this one under type, we can change the type from a numeric into, say for example, a string. So if we had text, we had words that we were wanting to use. The date, if we're using dates, you won't probably use this very much. Often it will be numeric because obviously that's what we're using SPSS for. So we'll close that down. If we want to go into label here, we can click it once and it just highlights it. We can click it twice and then we can edit it. So here we're going to re-edit edit number here. And we can do that for any of these. We can change it to whatever we want that variable to be called. And again, we can change the name as well over in these kind of columns if we want to change these names into something more suitable. If you want to then look at the different values for each of the variables, you can do that too. Click in values on that kind of right-hand side of the little cell, and it'll open up all the different variables, all the different categories, different values within each column here. So for this one is for sex, and here it's got multiple categories. The first ones are all minus numbers, as you can see, and that's because these are people who have either not answered the question or something didn't quite go right when they did answer it. So basically it's, missing data essentially. But you've got the two main categories here is one is male and two is female. And as I mentioned in the previous video, SPSS only understands the numbers really, particularly when you're running analyses. So if you tell it it's male and female in terms of what you write, it doesn't understand what that means. It only understands 1 and 2, 0, 1, whatever you decide to give those values. But just in here, it allows you to modify kind of what we, so we could change that to men, for example, if we want to do that. And click OK. I forgot to click change, and then we click OK, and it's changed. I can go back in and look at it again, and it says men and female there. So you can do all these little tweaks. So yeah, and the final one you might want to look at again is the measure one. You can click on here, and you get to see the different options for scale, ordinal, nominal. Right now that may not make sense what those mean, but in the next kind of presentations we're going to be looking at data types, and that will allow you to see why you might change some of these. So have a play around with the data, just have a look at it, see what you can do, see what you can find. There's these buttons all the way up the top in terms of file and data and analyze, and we'll be using these in the future as part of your exercises, but right now you don't need to do them. You can obviously click them and explore a little bit more detail. If you're, again, this is your first time ever using SPSS and you want to have a look around, but it can be a little bit overwhelming because there's so many different options in there, and that's what the idea of these videos and the exercises are, is to kind of take you on a step-by-step journey as you use SPSS for the first time.